And greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show, live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. Todd Erzin is here with me, alongside Aaron McIntyre, and then alongside all of you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can do so by emailing the program, steve@stevedeace.com. DEACE is the email address. Like us on Facebook, where you may see hashtag Facebook approved takes. That's where I attempt to post information on my Facebook account that Facebook no longer wants you to have access to. But I am learning that if I do so with the regime approved narrative, so you just have to ignore that part, I can actually get this information to you via Facebook. So know whenever you see that hashtag, I'm lying to you. It's not what I really think, but I had to tell that lie in order to get that information to you via Facebook.
I'm looking for, one of these days they're going to give you the Babylon Bee, you're not allowed to be funny treatment, aren't they? It has to be coming.
It has to be. So this morning I mixed metaphors. I started off with a post that made it look like what I really think and say. And then at the end, I dropped a little Facebook hashtag approved take just to see, again, I'm testing the algorithm. How far can I stretch this, right? What tactics work and which tactics do not, okay?
As I've told you, my wife says this is the most brilliant thing you've ever done.
I will tell her I said thank you, because admittedly it's a short list, but thank you nevertheless. You can also, if you want to, just to find out straight, no chaser, what I think on social media, look for us on MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter. Again, look for us on MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter, and then look for clips of the show that are free to watch and also free of censorship when you go to rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. That's rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. Went and did a follow-up this morning. I told you guys recently, I've been doing some of the kind of preventative stuff that you got to do when you start getting closer to that age. 50, you're closer than me. I got a few years yet, but you know me, I like to get ahead of the curve. I don't want to sit around and wait until I turn 50 and I'm like, all right, we got to address these things, okay? One of the things that came up is my cholesterol level was too high. So in the last month, I made some lifestyle changes, went back for a follow-up appointment today, and I've cut my cholesterol by over 50% in the last month plus. So about 4.5, 5 weeks. And one of the things I did is I just made a bunch of lifestyle changes. I'm not saying don't ever use medication. I've used it on some occasions as low doses as I possibly can. But ultimately, the more you can do preventatively to live as healthy as you can, the better off you are. That's why we tell you about products like our friends over at Brickhouse Nutrition, because that's one of the products I've been using a lot more, on a daily basis now, as I really up my fruit and vegetable intake. And you're hearing all this talk about variants and masks and shots and vaccines. And we were talking yesterday, Todd, about how this isn't a healthcare system anymore. It's a sick care system, correct, right? And so when you find doctors and stuff, even within that system, that understand the need for preventative care, and I have, thankfully, take full advantage of that and use products like Field of Greens at Brickhouse Nutrition. It's unlike other superfoods in that it uses real USDA organic fruits and vegetables. They are loaded with vitamins, minerals, nutrients, antioxidants, and they don't just use one. They use 18 clinically packed, researched fruits and vegetables. So just take Field of Greens, mix it in with any water-based drink, and in that one glass, you're probably getting more fruits and vegetables than the average American gets in a day, if sadly, not more. If you want to try it out today, they've got all kinds of cool flavors. They've got a new berry. They've got a lemon lime, the traditional green. 15% off your first order today when you use my name, Steve, as your promo code at checkout at brickhousesteve.com. brickhousesteve.com. Use the promo code Steve to get 15% off today. All right, coming up on the show, traditional Wednesday fare. We will begin our weekly game of buy, sell, or hold at the bottom of this hour. Next hour, we will be joined by the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation himself, Daniel Horowitz. And he has a theory of what is really going on here that I think you guys need to hear. So we're going to ask him about that coming up in the final segment of the show. But before we begin all of that, of course, we begin, as always, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by Coming for the Kids. The White House is rolling out a plan to vaccinate kids aged 5 to 11 with the COVID jabs, even though they're not approved yet. This morning, CDC Director Rochelle Walensky said once your kids are forcibly jabbed, they still need to mask up at school. The spokeswoman for Hell itself, Dr. Leanna Wen, has an interesting analogy regarding vaccines.
I would say think about the vaccine as a very good raincoat. It protects you when there's a drizzle outside, but then when there is a thunderstorm, if you're in and out of hurricanes all the time, at some point you could get wet. But that's not because there's something wrong with the raincoat. It's because there's just way too much rain all around you. And so in this case, we really have to consider what we need to do as a society, which is to suppress the level of overall infection and protect individuals.
And now we read the job description for the Surgeon General of the United States, found at hhs.gov. Quote, the U.S. Surgeon General is the nation's doctor, providing Americans with the best scientific information available on how to improve their health and reduce the risk of illness and injury. The USPHS mission is to protect, promote, and advance the health of our nation. In completely unrelated news, U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy tweets, quote, it was an honor to witness Admiral Levine's historic appointment as the first female 4-star officer to serve in the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps, and the first openly transgender 4-star officer to serve in any of the uniformed services, end quote. Attached is a photograph of a dude who thinks he's a lady taking the oath of office while both he and the Surgeon General, both fully vaccinated, wear a face mask. The dude who thinks he's a lady pulled his own mother out of an assisted living facility before sending COVID-infected patients into nursing homes while he was Pennsylvania's health secretary last year. Learning whatever language they speak in hell today, today's phrase is, I'm trolling you, ha 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 ha, you stupid humans, ha ha ha, public health, ha ha, you're so pathetic, ha ha ha. They really hate you update. Here's White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
It was clear in March of 2020 when COVID hit that the supply chains across the world had been disrupted. Even as the sort of work to fight back against COVID proceeded, it was crystal clear that things were not improving on supply chain. People couldn't get dishwashers and furniture and treadmills delivered on time, not to mention all sorts of other things. So why is
the tragedy of the treadmill that's delayed?
Right.
Meanwhile, in Canada, New Brunswick Minister of Education Dominique Cardy says,
keeping the unvaccinated people out of schools, out of hospitals, out of our government offices. If people want to choose to make a decision that is against their community's best interest and against their own, they can choose to not participate in those activities where everyone else has decided that we'd like to actually, if you don't mind, not die of a horrible disease.
Moving on, if you've watched any of a variety of sporting events on ESPN, you've probably seen or heard Allison Williams, one of the network's foremost sideline reporters. Well, she's out of a job after refusing to comply with that company's vaccine mandate.
To the women who got it and are having successful pregnancies and have babies in their arms, I'm beyond thrilled for you. Congratulations. That's amazing and terrific. And I believe you. To the women who have reached out and shared their experiences of getting the injection and subsequent miscarriages, menstrual irregularities, periods after menopause, I am so sorry that is your experience. And I pray for you, and I believe you. Belief is a word I've been thinking about a lot lately, because in addition to the medical apprehensions regarding my desire to have another child in regards to receiving this injection, I am also so morally and ethically not aligned with this. And I've had to really dig deep and analyze my values and my morals. And ultimately, I need to put them first.
In Seattle, police officers and firemen gathered at the city hall yesterday, dropping off their boots and other effects after being fired for refusing the city's COVID vaccine mandate. According to reporting by a few media outlets, dozens of the nation's top nuclear scientists and workers are facing termination at places like Los Alamos National Labs for refusing to go along with the vaccination requirement for federal workers. An In-N-Out burger franchise in San Francisco was forced to shut down recently after it was found they were not checking patrons' vaccine status before they entered the fast food joint, contradicting the city's directive on showing proof of vaccination to do just about anything. A spokesperson for the company said, quote, "We refuse to become the vaccination police for any government. We fiercely disagree with any government dictate that forces a private company to discriminate against customers who choose to patronize their business. This is a clear government overreach," end quote. A new poll from the Trafalgar Group shows a clear majority of Americans believe COVID is getting less serious, with a quarter of respondents saying the disease is getting, quote, "much less serious." In addition, that same poll finds a plurality of respondents believe President Biden and health officials like Dr. Fauci do not want restrictions to decrease as the threat diminishes. In other words, respondents feel like the government is holding on to its newfound power. And finally, some wise words from the sheriff of Polk County, Florida.
So just chill out. Drink a 7-Up, eat a moon pie, quit murdering people.
And that's what happened while we were away.
Who knew? It's just that simple. Wow. I mean, I think moon pies are fairly fantabulous. I don't know if they cure murder.
Only one way to find out.
But there's only one way to find out. Hey, that's our new control group, right?
That's like the Snickers commercial on steroids.
Yeah, angry?
Yeah, angry a little bit?
Yes.
Have a moon pie.
Yes. Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Real Estate Agents I Trust. Trying to sell your home is challenging in any era, but especially in these unprecedented times.
Bing.
Thank you. I love that extreme close-up, though. I like that. So, I was going to say this, and then I realized this actually may not start off the way people intended. I was going to say, I called my wife this morning, and guess who was at our house? Our real estate agent, right? I mean, that might be an ad for something else. But just hear me out, all right? This guy's just been tremendous. We've not bought or sold a home in 15 years, and he was our agent. But anytime we need something done with the home, he's got contacts. We had the once every 3 years septic stop up a couple weeks ago. Called him up. He had somebody out there first thing in the morning. You're looking for an agent like that, particularly, and it helps if you're moving, if they live in the same neighborhood you want to move into, right? Where do you find an agent like that? Well, the name kind of says it all. realestateagentsitrust.com. That's the name of the website. Just about anywhere in America that you want to go to find an agent, to get out of or to move to, we can probably help you over at realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, let's get to what is in the montage. Much of this montage is actually very encouraging today. There's a lot of defiance here today, and a lot of it going on throughout the country right now. A lot of courage is being shown, and that's good. Because that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take to end this. There's a lot of people instinctively know. And when I say we can't vote our way out of this, that has nothing to do with whether you should vote or not. I hate the Republican Party on a national level, like with an unbiblical level of loathing and seething. Okay? But at the same time, as I look and see what is going on a macro meta level in the culture, knowing that they are not with me on anything, our friend Emerald Robinson over at Newsmax tweeted out this morning that Mitch McConnell and the GOP establishment are totally fine with you losing your job over a vaccine mandate. And folks, I can promise you that is as true as friggin' gravity. Okay? That's absolutely true. That notwithstanding, dude, I myself at this point might just say, you know what, just let the Philistines and Edomites fight it amongst themselves and plunder the treasury amongst themselves in Washington to buy us some time while we fight this out amongst ourselves, for ourselves here on a local or state level. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I just think we have to learn to be pretty ambidextrous in the times in which we live. okay? But we can't vote our way out of this. You know, I mean, if Democrats lose 60 House seats next year, and I think it's possible, I'm okay if you want to applaud the loss of all 60 of those seats. I might do it myself. Just recognize, though, you'll be lucky if 10 or 15 of those replacements were worth your vote once they're in office. It just can't begin and end there. We have to take this amongst ourselves. And so to see so many of us, so many of you now, we're up to about 8,000 people have signed our Declaration of Independence Against COVID Stand pledge. I want to get it up to 10,000 because my hope is we now have accumulated a way for us to network with one another. Not just that we have pledged to do something, but we're better together. All this defiance going on together is far more effective than it was just one lone wolf out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all very encouraging. Let me get to something, though, that I don't mean for it to be discouraging. I really don't. But I mean for it to, in its own twisted way, also be encouraging. Because it's going to demonstrate that I believe the hour is late here. I don't know if they still have it. They had the doomsday clock. Was it in like Times Square or something when we were kids, Todd, about how close the world was to nuclear war? Do you remember that? Okay.
Yeah.
Do they still have that? Do you guys know? I don't know. Did that
It's
go
online
away?
now.
Nice.
I'm serious.
Is it? It is online? Oh, okay.
It's an app.
Okay, it's an app. Yeah. But, you know, if Reagan walked out of Reykjavik, we got 1 minute to midnight. Do you remember that?
Sure.
Right? Okay, those days. I don't know how close we are to midnight. I mean, I don't know if we're living in the death throes of a civilization. I don't know if we'll win this conflict. I don't know if we're living in the last days. I do know this, though, that we are required to go down swinging. That I know. That when times are good and things are well, we're to occupy until he comes, right? And we do the same when times are not. So I don't know what the outcome of our lawsuit will be. I don't know. I don't know what the outcome of these tremendous acts of courage and defiance will be. Who knows? But outcomes are not up to us. What was it, John Quincy Adams? You know, duty is ours. Outcomes belong to God. So therefore, our duty is to go down, swinging and praying. That's our duty. Our duty is to go down, swinging and praying. And I'm encouraged that I see that happening, and because I see it happening in places where we don't have a lot of reach. You know, our show's grown a lot, but this ain't, folks, you know, the Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino show. We don't have that kind of reach. Which tells me then that a lot of people are getting stirred up and motivated and are a real understanding of the signs of the times, independent of what's going on within our own ecosystem here. And I'm very encouraged by that. And you should be too. It won't sound like what I'm about to tell you next should encourage you, but it should. Because if you're still not sure yet, I think you need to understand that the hour is late. I don't know how close it is to midnight. I just know it's closer to midnight than it was when I was growing up, than it even was when I got into this business. It's certainly closer to midnight than it was even just a few years ago. In 1913, before they fired the guns of August, before World War I, Germany was probably the most enlightened, prosperous, educated society in the world. It was a technological, modern marvel. Whether it was the state of education, its economy, civil engineering,
music. You're going back centuries.
Pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Hollywood before Hollywood was Hollywood.
The church.
Yeah. It was really the epicenter of Western civilization. Remember, it was when the United States got into World War I. that there was the famous line, I fear we have awakened a sleeping giant. The U.S. was late to the party on the Industrial Revolution. We were still a largely agrarian society in 1913. Just 25 years later, 1938, Germany had provoked not one, but going on now a second world war. This one accompanied by, frankly, a demonic level of genocide, especially given its core motivations of anti-Semitism, hate, eugenicism, etc. It had plunged full throat into nihilistic authoritarianism. And that was without mass media, social media, meaning that news cycles did not evolve and devolve at the pace that they do in our day, where stuff that happened 6 months ago feels like it was 10 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. That was not what was going on at this time in human history. And so that rate of deceleration for a period of time where things moved at a snail's pace from a trajectory standpoint compared to how we live today is frightening. Here's why. Here is why. Because when a culture lets go of the rope, here's what happens. When it goes fast. I remember when Target was like the first major corporation to open up its bathrooms to people of different genders, that men could now go into women's bathrooms. I remember writing a piece for USA Today about how Planet Fitness had banned a woman who complained that a man was in the women's locker room changing, claiming to be a woman. I wrote a column criticizing that for the USA Today editorial page. Would they run that column today? No. But they published it, I think that was like in 2014 or 15. And do you know why I remember when the Target thing happened and they were protested by the American Family Association? Because it's when we were on the American Family Association's radio network before we went to Salem in 2013, 2014. That's just 7-8 years ago. Yesterday, you watched a man, and a morbidly obese one at that, get sworn in as the first female 4-star admiral. So this is where the spirit of the age and your feminism and everything has gotten you. Men are now better women than women now. So congrats. But sworn in as a 4-star admiral. And yes, you can save me the emails. You're not the only person surprised Mr. Levine wasn't sworn in as a rear admiral. Thank you. Enough. Okay, thank you. All right, it was funny the first 10 emails of this I got. The last 39. All right, admittedly still funny, but you can stop now. Okay? Thank you. Point's been made. Oh, now I need to stop. See, we can't talk literally about anything without tripping over our own depravity right now as a people. The difference between Germany in the 30s is there is a stronger remnant here than existed there at the time. And so what you saw from 1913 to 1938, that quarter century, is you saw basically an entire culture in Germany let go of the rope. And those that weren't willing to let go of the rope, they just gave them yellow stars. They called them Jews, gypsies, undesirables, and they just either banished them or executed them. Now, in our country, we've got too many guns and too large of a remnant. We don't have the kind of remnant we had 30, 40 years ago. But we sure as hell got a bigger remnant than what they've got in the UK, Germany, France, and all these other Western countries. And so what you're watching is you're watching dual track existence occur. one culture in America has let go of the rope. They've let go of it. And that's why, again, when a culture lets go of the rope, when it goes, then it goes fast. They let go of the rope. And we've got this other culture here in America grasping and clinging like in a tug of war to hold on to that rope. Now, this is like two magnets, or how Augustine described the city of man and the city of God. When you put two magnets together, they fight for the superior polarity here. And eventually one will swallow the other. Now, when that happens in Augustine's matrix, that's called the Dark Ages. All right? When the city of man swallows the city of God, that's called the Dark Ages. Did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
It's just told in reverse.
Yes.
We're meant to understand the exact opposite happened.
Correct. You're watching a miniature version of this drama play out uniquely in this country because there is a remnant in this country that did not exist in these other Western countries, and that's why they let go of the rope. We have a dual track existence of culture in America. And so you have one country that is literally got calluses on its hands right now trying to hold on. They got rope burns, doing whatever they can to hold on to this rope. And now they're even seeing people that were part of the let go of the rope crowd. Like Andrew Sullivan yesterday tweeting out the story about the tranny rape in the Virginia schools. Did you see that?
No.
Because when I saw he did that, I retweeted him. And so what's happening now is you've even got some people that were originally part of the let go of the rope crowd that are like, holy bleep, the bottom of this rabbit hole is a place I don't want to go there. And so they're like joining us now, like even grabbing parts of the rope to hold on. But that means, though, that other culture over here has totally let go of the rope. Barring a revival, it is not coming back. It's not capable of it. And neither, by the way, for all of our claims of conservatism and heritage and legacy, if we let go of the rope, we're not capable of it either. That's why you can't do good without God. We can't do this alone as a species. One of these impulses is going to win. And every day, that other culture over there is making it patently clear. Can't stop, but most importantly, won't stop. It's let go of the rope. The stop's already occurred, guys. I see people post stuff on social media saying, boy, if we do this, no, you have it backwards. We're doing this, doing that, because that already occurred. You want your mind blown? Go back, read Romans 1 again. Blew my mind several years ago. All along, I thought, boy, if we do these sorts of things, we legalize these sorts of things, man, it's going to that's how you invoke the wrath of God. And then I read Romans 1 again and realized, no. It's the opposite. It's the giving over to your own depraved minds. It's the removal of the restraining hand of God. Fine, have it your way, Burger King. That's the judgment. That is it. Common grace is gone. The natural law says, see on the flip side, you're on your own here. Have at it, kiddos. That's going on in this other culture, and it will not stop. It will either have to be stopped or it will stop us. And here's the encouragement. If you were ever wondering, is this the time for me to put the chips all in? Is this the time? Is this the hill to, I don't want to serve no wine before it's time. I don't want to risk a sacrifice that isn't worthy of the moment. Yes, this is it. This is the time. This is the pivot point right now. The other culture is gone. What we're going to determine now is whether we have the resolve to hold on to the rope within our own culture. Buy, sell, or hold is next. So I just tried it out again. It's a flavor that Built Bar has me testing. I don't know if it's for sale yet, though. Blueberry muffin. It is absolutely fantastic. But then again, every flavor at Built Bar is fantastic. And then some are just more fantastical than others, like, say, chocolate chip cookie dough chunk, which is back and available now. So whether you want to try that most fantastical of flavors or any of their other just merely fantastic ones, you can do so now with the absolute greatest protein bar ever created. Go to built.com, BUILT, use my last name, Deace, as your promo code and get 15% off your order. 15% off your order at built.com. Fantastic, and it's loaded with flavor, all covered in real chocolate. I've tried their puffs now too. I had not tried those previously. Those are great. I mean, if you like marshmallowy kind of candy texture, that's more your jam. You will love those Built Bar puffs. Again, not loaded with calories, not loaded with sugar, not loaded with carbs, but loaded with plenty of flavor and protein. Use my last name, Deace, as your promo code right now at built.com. Before we get to buy, sell, or hold, can I give a little adviso to the audience for just a moment, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have been mentioning this and for the last couple of months to be on the lookout for this. And a few of you have emailed me, so I wanted to give you an update. Sweden. So Sweden is now entering, if you look at its epidemiological curve, it is now entering its seasonality this week. And Sweden is a country, just as it was at this time last year, because it didn't lock down, and so we were looking at it as a control group. I think Sweden is the control group again. On July 23rd, only 39% of Swedes were fully vaccinated. As of yesterday, that number is up to 67%. That means in the last 88 days, the Swedes have fully vaccinated at least 2.8 million people in just the last 88 days. But here's the thing. They built up a tremendous amount of natural immunity before their vaccination program by virtue of not doing the lockdowns everybody else did. Also keep in mind, total population of Israel and Sweden is similar. Obviously, Israel has a lot more population density. But Sweden's average or median age is 41. The median age of an Israeli is 29. The obesity rates of the country, about the same. Sweden is about 21%. Israel's about 25%. And yet we have seen what's happened with Israel with very little natural immunity because of its lockdowns. It's now already in the middle of its third go-around with Pfizer vaccines since January. So for the next few weeks, couple months, we will keep a keen eye on Sweden, because it's going to tell us a lot, we think, about these vaccines. Because they followed, even though they're still vaccinating into a pandemic, as our badass new friend Dr. Peter McCullough put it yesterday, they're doing so with what we would assume logically to be a much higher level of natural immunity than everybody else is. So do we see the efficacy hold up for their seasonality? Or do we see it collapse like we've seen in all these other countries? This will be, I think, very fascinating to watch. Do you guys want to comment on that before we move on to buy, sell, or hold?
Well, Aaron spoke about win-wins yesterday. I largely also see this as a win-win in terms of it to anybody who actually cares about real science or paying attention. You're going to learn something one way or the other that shows you that the way most people up until this present day think is the way to do things was never the way to do things. And already people are trying to talk about in a far different way than you are, Steve, about what the vaccination rate means there. Yeah, I'm concerned about that. I hope it doesn't undo what they accomplished. But remember, they're also that race to vaccinate did not happen in the season they're going into now.
No, they clearly ramped this puppy up to get as many people vaccinated before their seasonality as they possibly could. That's pretty obvious.
And also because perhaps they have the exact same understanding as Peter McCullough. You don't do it in the face
Don't vaccinate into the pandemic.
Yes.
You do it during the down period.
Right.
That is a good point, Todd. That's an excellent point. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm the anti-vaxxer, remember?
Yeah.
Grief.
Sorry, I was distracted by this tweet from the State Department, from the official account. Today on International Pronouns Day, we share why many people list pronouns on their email and social media profiles.
See, that's what we were just talking about. They've let go of the rope, guys. They've let go of the rope. Okay. And so all of us have to Did I mention I cannot stand? I mean, unbiblically, I can't stand most of these Republicans. I can't stand to be in the same room as most of them, particularly like any of the leadership. I detest them. But now I have to admit some of my old political calculuses that were guiding principles of this show for a lot of the years when you guys were just merely the listeners to it before you came to work here, right? Mm-hmm. I'm wrestling with, am I granted the benefit or the luxury of that calculus now? When hell's fury, the pit of hell is open, when the Visigoths are literally coming over the wall, right? Mm-hmm. Now, maybe the answer is still yes. I don't know, but it's just not an automatic for me the way it has been for a lot of the run of this program. And this is an example of what we're talking about. The things that we thought theoretically where they would go if we allowed them, they're there. They've been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, guys. Ridden hard, put away wet. They're in. Rope, let go. They're like, what's a rope? They don't know what a rope is. Don't know what a border is. And that's why they don't know what a border is. That's why they don't know what an adult is, a male, a female, because they let go of the rope. So that's an example, Aaron, of what we were just talking about.
Indeed.
All right, let's get to it. Buy, sell, or hold. This is where, speaking of Aaron, with a lot of help from you and his audience, or you in the audience, his friends, comes up with a series depending on, and it's not topic dependent. It could be on anything, and it could often be very random. All right, it could be some take on college football, and then the collapse of Western civilization right after that. All right, and then Todd, you and I are deciding: are we going to buy that? Are we going to sell it? Maybe even have a justifiable reason or two why during the course of the conversation. Once per episode, you are permitted to put a hold on what is being proposed. But if it's for any reason other than how the hell did that make it onto our airwaves, you will administer Lindsey Graham's next booster shot. Todd?
No.
Are you in?
No, sir.
Is that a yes then?
Yes.
No means yes. All right.
Yes.
Aaron, go ahead.
Thoroughly confused. We'll begin with Christy King, who says the right of the government to snoop on our bank accounts, whether $600 or $10,000, they'll do what they want anyway, will grow the black market, boost cash, barter, and Bitcoin, and ultimately reduce revenue to the U.S. Treasury.
Christy, sounds like you might have an orthodox, common sense view that is confirmed by history of human nature, right? Because the answer to your question is, of course, yes. I saw one of our colleagues here at Blaze Media, Ricky, tweeted out earlier, you guys just aren't any good at this anymore politically. Because if you really wanted to make it look like you're just doing this to the rich people to make sure they pay their fair share, you'd be doing it to anybody making over $600,000 a year, not $600, by any transactions of over $600. All right. And so that just, again, feeds what the true motivations of this are about. And people sense that, and that's why they will do what you are suggesting, Christy. Do you know when we had one of the largest flourishing black markets in human history during the age of feudalism? That's just an example of mercantilism. That is an example of what we're talking about. So yes is the answer to that question.
Of course it is. You understand Adam Smith's invisible hand.
Yes.
And remember, Adam Smith was, oftentimes he's confused as if he was just some sort of modern day 20th century purely economic philosopher. The man was a moral philosopher. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's why the economic ethos that has survived the test of time, because it was moral first and foremost. And once you set that aside, Christie's right on the nose.
Amen.
Next up, Stephen Barham says the Department of Justice will classify the name Brandon as hate speech by Halloween.
buy. This is happening.
I will sell. I don't think they'll want to acknowledge it. I think that they'll want to pretend that it's not occurring.
I think it was Facebook that just put out a message like yesterday that said we're coming down on this because this is just mean. It's all happening.
But that wasn't the question. The question was the Department of Justice, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think that to ban it would require a level of acknowledgement that the phenomenon exists. You know what I'm saying? And so on an official level, I mean, this isn't going to be like the Big 12 wrestling with itself on whether they're so desperate to keep Texas. Do we penalize horns down or not? Right? Okay. They don't even want to acknowledge that this horns down is even happening on an institutional level.
Do you remember 2 seconds ago where we just made a dude the first woman 4-star admiral, and the tweet that the State Department just issued?
Yeah, but that's why I'm making this argument, because when we throw chromosomes and stuff at these people, what do they do with it? Nothing. It doesn't matter. You know, they don't exist. They just ignore it. They just ignore all impulse, all science, all reason. That's why I made this analysis, because I think the same thing will cross over to this. Yeah. Now, could I see that it just so happens that a lot of people that made those questionable $600 or more transactions that they want to trace just so happen to be flying some of those "Let's Go Brandon" memes and T-shirts? I could see that going down, right?
Sure.
Okay. But to officially acknowledge that this thing is such a thing, we've got to go after it. That's just not the way I think the spirit of the age operates. It's to act like it's above you. Your opposition is beneath it. These things aren't really happening.
Next up, Chad Smith says Facebook wants new regulations passed for social media because the Facebook CEO can spend $419 million to pick the person who will approve these regulations each election.
I mean, that's how it works in virtually every other industry. I mean, we have to play at some point this week, Aaron, in your montage, this Pfizer montage going around. Mm-hmm. Our CEO, Tyler, sent it to me last night, and it was you and I were talking about before the show. Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny. We're always chasing these rabbit trails and feeling like what are we missing? And then, you know, Tyler sent me that montage last night, and my jaw just dropped. Like, I mean, this has just been right in front of our face this entire time, right? Okay. But yeah, I mean, but this isn't new. I used to use the term gangster government on the show a lot during the Tea Party era, but that's what this is. There's no such thing as crony capitalism. There's capitalism and there's cronyism. And cronyism is how this operates. K Street looks like we like to say in theological circles, hell is a real place. In political circles, guys, K Street is a real place. I've been there. I've stood on K Street. It exists in Washington, D.C. And look at the amount of lobbyists Moderna and Pfizer have. How many lobbyists does natural immunity have? I'm going to give you a hint. It's a real low number, even though our Ivy League buddy Andrew Bostom has a study out from his native Rhode Island that shows natural immunity has about 90% more effective in terms of long-lasting, durable immunity to COVID-19 than even full vaccination is. Is 90% greater? Like if you went into the doctor and said, all right, I tell you what, if you stop smoking 2 packs a day, 90% odds now you don't get emphysema. Would you view that as a recommendation worthy of your time? If someone told it would make improve your lot about 90%, right?
Right.
And so why do we ignore this? There's no money to be made in it. There's no lobbyist for it. It doesn't fit the agenda. That's why.
Remember with this thing with Pfizer, I just can't resist telling. They did movie theaters at some point got in trouble for during the movie or during the trailers sneaking in subliminally, so you'd see it with your mind's eye, pictures of pop and popcorn, and they've actually made so you can't do that anymore when they got caught doing that. And here the devil sat by and said, dude, here's the problem. You didn't even need to be sneaky about it. You just put it up there over and over again. Every Pfizer over and over and over again. You don't sneak it in, you see it right there, and then they can't say you tried to sneak something by me. Because they're sheep. They will simply follow. They won't question. It will be magical.
And it's the business model. I mean, when Pfizer is sponsoring literally every newscast pretty much in legacy media in America, and it's not, and it's no one's immune, and it's human nature. Again, we'll hold ourselves accountable to the same standard. All right. So one of you sent me an email about one of our advertising clients. I won't mention who it is yet because I don't know yet if it's true. okay, but sent a disturbing story to me about one of our advertising clients on the show. Now, if it wasn't one of our advertising clients, I would have probably gone ahead and commented on the story, just to be brutally honest with you, because that's what we do. We just tell you the truth as best we can here. If it wasn't one of our advertising clients, then I would not have been compelled. Typically, I wouldn't take a story like this and send it to the management here at the Blaze before commenting on it. Like if Johnson & Johnson, there's a story out today, and remember, these are the people they want you to trust with your bodies. What is it, Aaron? Like for 70 years or something, they had asbestos in the baby powder. Yeah. They're now admitting it. For decades they did, okay? Since Johnson & Johnson's not a sponsor, I would not feel compelled to then go to any of the management here at the Blaze before commenting on this, okay? But in this case, we are talking about a sponsor. It's also not a traditional media source either. Like I didn't get this out of the New York Times, although that might mean it has a higher chance of being true. Okay, but in this case, because of a business relationship, yeah, I have an obligation, I think. Doesn't mean we're going to let him skate by if it's true, right? I've canceled advertisers. You saw me do it earlier this year. Yeah. You saw me do it on this show earlier this year. I've refused to take advertisers. So if the story is true, you bet your ass I'll be commenting on it. But because it is an advertiser and someone who's been a loyal advertiser on the show for more than 10 minutes, I do feel compelled to give them more of a benefit of the doubt. And so I'm going to run this through some managerial change before I go scorched earth, right? That's business. That's human nature. Now imagine that Pfizer is literally sponsoring every single newscast in America.
It's the blue hat from Mysterious Benedict Society.
Yeah. Great analogy.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
We're living in the
Lego
movie.
It's the emergency, yes.
We're living in the Lego movie. Remember that he's not wearing any pants at the beginning and how everything has to be uniform? Honestly, all that pop culture, it's like God gave us all these gifts. Superhero movies, the Lego movie, it told us what was going to happen, and we still slurp it up.
Why didn't we listen to the Lego movie? Why? Why? It was all there the entire time.
It was.
It was, though. Hour 2 is next. Back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todders and Aaron McIntyre and all of you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can email us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. Look for me as well on MeWe, Parler, Gab, and Getter. And then get your clips of the show for free that are also free of censorship at rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. That's rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. And if you go to rumble.com/Steve Deace Show, we have taken yesterday's interview with Dr. Peter McCullough and turned it into its own separate video. Folks, that is information and a conversation as many Americans as you can possibly reach need to see. So please, if you missed it yesterday, first, watch it for yourself. But then secondly, grab that link, share it with absolutely everybody you know. Now, let's make sure, though, we use this information properly. We have a lot of admiration for Dr. McCullough on this show. We think he might actually be the biggest badass in America right now. Do we, however, think he is Jesus? Do we think he's Jesus?
No, but you might after what I tell you.
Okay, what?
He said he'd like to come back again anytime, and next time he's going to wear his Michigan tie.
You mean he's coming? There's going to be a second coming? Enough. Okay. Enough. He's not Jesus.
With a Michigan tie.
Okay, he's not Jesus. He is quite the badass, though. But here's why he's not Jesus is important. Is he infallible?
No.
No. Could he have been wrong about anything he said yesterday? Is that possible?
Sure.
Is there wisdom in a multitude of counsel?
Yes.
Yes. Should you at least have access to the viewpoint of one of America's most decorated cardiovascular experts pre-COVID, who has since been smeared post-COVID? Should his pre-COVID credentials still account for something at least?
Yes.
Yes. Should you therefore take into account what he has to say and then compare it with all the other information that is out there?
Yes, unless you're in a cult.
Yes. And we're not in a Peter McCullough cult any more than we're in a Branch Covidian one. We greatly respect him, But he is still, he's one hell of a man, but he is still what?
A man.
A man. So when you introduce this information to family and friends who have not traveled outside of the big pharma, military, enemy media industrial complex, don't jump on them right away that like, this guy's Albert Schweitzer, okay? This is your new shaman. Bow to your sensei. Don't do that. So say, hey, this guy's pretty decorated. I know there's some things about him out there that people are critical. A lot of that criticism from what I've seen is because he's got a different view on COVID. He actually treats COVID patients. It's a 15-minute interview, man. At least if your life depended on watching something for 15 minutes, would you typically do it? Probably. Or the life of somebody you love?
Right.
Yeah. Just tune in for 15 minutes. And if he doesn't prompt anything, then just move on and keep doing what you were doing. See, introduce it. He's not Elijah. Although he might end up be. We want that actually. We would love to put Dr. McCullough on Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal. Now that comparison we're all in for, okay? But for now, he's just an alternative view and one that just happens to have a lot better credentials than a lot of the mainstream view you're getting. So as many people as possible just need to watch it for themselves and just hear what he has to say. And then at that point, we've all done our duty, right? We've presented the information. What people choose to do with it is up to them. So go get that video clip right now. Rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. Rumble.com/Steve Deace Show. We still need about 2,000 more people to sign our pledge. I mean, we don't need that. I like the idea of having an army of 10,000. It's a good round number. We're about 2,000 short of that right now. If you go to stevedeace.com. DEACE, you can read the pledge for yourself, share it with others, sign it there. stevedeace.com, see our Declaration of Independence from COVIDstan. But remember, this is about being doers of the word here, not mere hearers, okay? Like a few of you have texted me and have emailed me and said, I love the pledge, but I frankly, I just got to be honest, there's a couple of things where I'm at in life right now, I just can't do them. God bless you. You were probably some of the first people that turned around and donated for the lawsuit because you could do that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's why I didn't say we needed, we sold 100,000 copies of Fauci and Bargain. We don't need, I know that 100,000 people in this audience cannot sign that pledge. I'm aware of that. That's why I'm not asking for that. Can we get 10,000 people? Can we do that? I think we can. And then imagine then if you reach another, each of us just models this behavior and even just reaches one more person with it. Now we're multiplying, right? Now we're doing the right kind of math. So check out the pledge for yourself, read it, share it, sign it if you can at stevedeace.com. All right, let's get back to part 2 of Buy, Sell, or Hold, brought to you by Sweat Block. We've all been there. There's really never a good time in public unless it's at a gym or on a court to be caught all sweaty, especially when it happens like, say, at under the lights at a major speaking engagement. That's never happened to me. Yes, it has. Or, maybe it's before a first date or that. See, to me, granted, it's been a minute since I've dated, but wouldn't the second date actually be more nerve-wracking? Because the first one, there's like no expectations, right? You don't know if you're going to like the person. You don't know if they're going to like you. It's the second date where now there was enough there that it was worthy of going back, right? Don't you think that's when Aaron, you've dated more recently. Isn't the second date where you'd feel more pressure? I mean, first date, if you don't know them at all, they don't like you, who gives a rip, right?
True, yeah. I guess, yeah, no, that makes sense.
Okay, or a job interview.
Yep.
That's a terrible time to be all sweaty. It looks like you got something to hide, right? All right. Man, that's why you want to check out our friends over at Sweatblock. Their antiperspirant wipes, they are stronger and more effective than even the most clinical of antiperspirants out there. You just wipe your pits down the night before, go to bed, get up the next morning, do your normal routine. You're good to go for several days. And they have, by the way, their own antiperspirant. It's fantastic. I've used it. And they've also got some deodorant lotions as well that are for some of those more difficult, sensitive regions that can get a little swampy, if you know what I'm saying. If you want to try them out right now, 20% off when you go to sweatblock.com, just like it sounds. sweatblock.com and use the promo code DEACE, DEACE, and get 20% off today. All right, let's get to part 2. Buy, sell, or hold.
We will go next to New Dark Ages, who says in some states in the next 6 months, the unvaxxed will be banned from hospitals.
Bye. I know of someone who was removed from a hospital here in Iowa in a college town because they were unvaxxed. So I'll buy.
Next up, we go to Dave Ebert. 25% of all negative reviews of the Steve Deace Show are from former listeners that Aaron never picked for buy, sell, or hold.
I'm going to say buy just because I want to believe it's true, that it's not my fault, and I want to blame somebody else. I am still a son of Adam after all. It's this producer you gave me. Okay, so I will buy just so I can pass the buck in grand American male tradition.
I will sell. It seems like these people aren't former listeners. The negative reviews come from people who like religiously watch it all. It's bizarre and insane.
I've never understood that. At first I thought, I used to get this reaction a lot when I did sports talk radio. And at first I just thought it's because it's sports. Guys like to argue about sports, get angry about sports, right? Okay. But when I started delving, when I transitioned, can't even use that term anymore. All right. When I evolved, when they moved me from sports into news talk, I was still amazed. Because now we're talking about real life serious stuff. Why would you just sit around and let me? To me, I always found that to be like the greatest compliment. That you would let me infuriate you at that level, right? Like I don't let people. If I find somebody to be that intellectually dishonest or amoral, I'm not like, and that's why I'm listening tomorrow. I'm just they're dead to me, right? I don't know. I've never understood that phenomenon, but it's a real thing.
At least back then, you were drive time. Heck, when I get out of here, I always listen to local sports radio. So it's on. If I'm in the mood for music, I'll listen to that. But here you have to go out of your way to watch our podcast, and you're doing it anyways.
Right. That's a good point. I mean, this isn't the 50,000 watt blowtorch in town, and
yes,
you're tuning in for the weather and the traffic on the way home, and so you're kind of stuck with me in between. In this case, you're seeking this long-form content out. Yeah, good point.
Next, we go to I Have Questions, who says some part of the overwhelming need for fear porn with COVID can be traced to our cultural obsession with dystopian things like The Walking Dead. Some are hoping for the fulfillment of some sort of dark fantasy.
I think this is an excellent point. Now, I think this helped to cultivate this. This would be a better proposition for last year. Because I certainly think, I mean, if you look at the amount of dystopian, apocalyptic pop culture that had been trending for really the previous decade in this country. And there was a time that The Walking Dead was the most watched television show in America. So, yeah, I certainly think that's true at the original outset. I think what's driven 2021, I think that was very true in 2020. I don't think it's as true in 2021 because I think that's been more driven by now you see an impulse how many Americans want to be ruled. They've let go of the rope. They want to be subjugated. It's like a fetish. It is, as the great prophet Brett Bielema once said, it's borderline erotic. They get off on it. And then their oppressors, this is a classic in the kink world, which I know about because my wife studies this stuff all the time. It's the classic dom-sub relationship, all right? That you want to be a simp. You get off on it. I mean, you're pleasured by it, and your dom is pleasured by dominating you. And that's, people want to be dominated. They want to bow the knee. They enjoy it. I think that's what's driven this year. But since I think that this was certainly true last year, I will buy, I should say.
I will sell. I actually think the people who watch this show are probably more prone to being awake and rejecting giving themselves over than, and I'm probably going to make some enemies on this, but the greater problem is those, and during Christmas it's fun to watch, but like the people who would watch like the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah.
Or the people who are constantly watching home improvement shows or something like that. They're just like their first world. I have no concerns. I don't want any concerns. I can't even. So just everybody stop endangering my life and just do what you're told and wear the mask. I think that's the problem, not people who were watching Walking Dead.
Next up, Zach L. says Rachel will be the most popular name for prostate possessors born to progressive non-prostate possessors in the next 6 months.
Nailed it.
That might be one of the greatest offerings we've had in the history of this segment. We're at the very least coining the term prostate possessors.
Well, that was actually going around last week.
Was it?
I can't remember who it was.
It's the first I've heard of it. Okay. Did you guys see the Levine meme that I sent you guys in our text chain last night? I worked my balls off for this job.
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about
the other one was even better.
Yeah. Oh, the one on Thanos, Tranos.
Yes.
Okay. You should have aimed for my. Yeah.
Should have gone for the.
I said should have gone for the head. Should have gone for the.
But it's funny. But this is why the timing of that movie. They're trying
this
right
is the
now.
dumbest cultural collapse in human history, guys.
It's dumb, but
it's so stupid.
It's the exact same thing, though, as the Thanos snap in the end. It is. They are snapping away reality. Doesn't matter if it's got a stupid laugh track.
Yes,
to it
they
or not,
are,
they
but it was a cosmic villain of grand proportions that came with a harem of demonic assassins and a horde of vicious world killers. We've got the bearded lady with a Pabst Blue Ribbon belly being named a 4-star admiral. Okay. And we're not sure, does he have more hairs in his crack or in his nose? All right? This is dumb. This is the dumbest cultural collapse in the history of this species. And that is saying something. In fact, I don't even know what would be second. What would be second? Do you know what would be second? I don't know what would be second to this. If this is the dumbest, I don't know what was dumber than this. I can't even blame Europeans for tossing their feces out into the streets and causing the bubonic plague of rats because they didn't have septic. What else were they going to do?
You wrote the column about this. Remember, they couldn't write this in the movies. Nobody would believe it.
I know. And yet here we are.
It's Thanos snapping.
Next up, we go to Fedigator, who says he has a top 6 list of the greatest electronics of the 1980s.
Now here we go. Finally, some good news. Yes.
Number 6, he has the Casio calculator watch.
Hell yeah! Anything Casio, buy.
When I saw Casio, I was going to buy, but the calculator watch no, I got to sell. This has got
no Casio represent. Casio has to be on the list. Represent.
Number 5, the Epson ET10 Pocket TV. You know, when I was a kid, and you'd get those big JCPenney catalogs with even the toys in them as well.
Yep.
I thought, man, I will really have made it when I have one of those like handheld TVs. Now
those handheld. My last beat as a sports writer was covering Northern Iowa FCS football, and it was 1999 and Tom Brady's senior year, and we were really good. And a lot of those Saturdays that Michigan was playing, I had to be at the Unidome covering games. I just want you to know, smuggling that pocket TV into the press box there at the Unidome, there would be some indiscriminate cheering in the press box because I was watching the Michigan game on the pocket TV. I figured, hey, they're going to bring me all the stats in the UNI game. I'm really just sitting up here watching the Michigan game. So I got to buy. That's one of the greatest inventions of my lifetime was the pocket TV.
I'm selling. I'm still not getting nostalgic about this list.
Number 4,
curmudgeon.
The VHS player.
How's that not number 1?
Because let's find out.
Okay, yeah.
Number 3, the Sony Walkman.
Yes,
that could be a number 1 too. Yes. That could be a number 1 too.
Now we're talking.
Yep.
Number 2, the Apple Macintosh computer.
Cannot be ahead of the Walkman or the VCR, but it belongs on the list. Sure. Yeah.
And then the number 1 thing, Nintendo console, NES, and the Game Boy.
Buy.
I didn't realize the Game Boy came out in 1989.
It originally did, yes. I will buy on that. That's a pretty good list. I'd probably have a different order. I would certainly have VHS or the Walkman 1 and 2, and then maybe Nintendo 3rd. But overall, that's a pretty good list. You're missing something, though. I don't know if we can get it on the wall. Can you get the little pocket?
Yeah, see, I was going to say
football
that.
thing. Okay.
That's my point.
I mean, do you know how many hours I spent?
Yes.
In the back of the car with Dave and Vicky on road trips to
Handheld
nowhere.
football had to be there.
The handheld football game stopped me from going insane. Yes.
And even before the original Atari console.
The Atari 2600. There it is in all of its glory.
Yeah,
Yes.
now you're
going to
get 50 more emails.
About
Why is
the
Joel Osteen on your
The people
shelf?
triggered by
Don't
Joel
answer
Osteen.
any of them. Don't answer one. Figure it out for yourselves, people.
How about, do you remember when they came out, so you see the little Galaga thing there next to the football thing? Do you remember when they came out with the little things that look like Joust, look like Pac-Man, look like Defender, that were about this big that you could play them
Yes, I do.
by themselves? Those were pretty sweet too. Yeah.
Oh, we got that Anthony Fauci card still up on the...
My kids are fascinated by the notion of arcades. So you just went and there's just games in this room?
Yeah. As opposed to you just went down to the basement?
Yeah.
Like they do? Right. Yeah.
Let's see. Moving on, we will go to Grant Isaski. Cash will be made illegal in the next 10 years.
I could buy that. I could buy that on the grounds that I think it is possible we're living in an end times level event. I do. And I certainly think it's possible we're living through the end of Western civilization as we know it. And it has been known really for the last 500 years. So I will buy.
Yeah, I'll buy.
Next, Captain Spatula says it will one day be discovered that inhaled particulates shed from masks are responsible for increased incidences of throat and lung cancers by 1,000 times.
I could absolutely buy that.
What were we just talking about, Johnson & Johnson?
I mean, you're blocking the human body's filtration system. So yes, I will buy.
My daughter, my athletic D1 daughter, in the last 2 years has had strep throat 3 times. Never once before this stupidity. Never once.
What is strep throat? Streptococcus. That's a bacterium. What has she been inhaling in these with these school occasions with these masks? Re-inhaling, re-ingesting bacteria. Yes.
Next, Aaron Carney says it's only a matter of time before Fauci says, I did not have financial relations with that lab.
I love the line, so I'm going to buy. Although I'm not optimistic that this will be fulfilled. I just love the line. So
But I'm
going to buy.
selling. He just keeps moving the goalposts, and he'll say, he's done it already on this thing. There's always a yeah, but. So, it's just going to keep moving and moving and moving.
I think that we're going to get a full admission someday from Fauci, maybe Collins et al. Yes, we did fund this. Yes, we knew the risks. We're going to get a full admission. Yes, we probably did create this virus. It's always going to be followed up with, it was for your own good. Mm-hmm. Alexander Rogers says, as we've seen pushed by the UN and the Davos group, the true end goal of the spirit of the age is to have a biometric verification system in place that requires our blood to be tested for virtually everything.
I just don't know how you can take any of these sorts of things off the table in the era in which we live. I just don't. And, I talked earlier that these are times for us to be ambidextrous. This is pretty ambidextrous for me. I mean, I'm talking about myself. We would not have even, if we had done buy, sell, or hold in 2017, 2016, maybe we did, I don't even remember. Would this have even made it on air, something like this? No. In fact, I don't even know that we would have had the kind of audience that would send us things like this, right?
Right.
But because we do understand the signs of the times, we're all sitting here in very sober, lucid mind saying, I don't know how you can say no to that, so I'll buy.
Yeah. And Aaron, remember a couple weeks back, I believe you were talking about an image. I'm not sure if you actually retweeted it at all, about a pig animal, a pig human hybrid.
I think it was. I did a little bit more digging into that. It tells you how much digging I actually had to do. I think it was just a deformed baby piglet, but the fact that that's believable at this point.
But cloning, Dolly the sheep. Plastic surgeons have literally been turning people into something close to a dragon or an ant. I mean, this is somehow outside the bounds of where science and medicine have been going? Of course not.
All right, we have a list. This might be our last one. Fuhrer, not Mullah. Fuhrer says,
What a name. What a name. Goodness gracious. Not Mullah. Fuhrer.
Biden administration rap names. Biden, old dirty bastard.
Oh, my. That should just stop there. And yes, kids, when you and I were kids, there really was a rapper that was named that. Yeah, so, bye.
Yeah,
yes.
I'll just.
Yes.
I'm buying everything unless you hear me say no.
Okay.
Kamala, Kanye mess.
Dude,
Okay.
dude. I'm just gonna buy and move on. Okay.
Jesse Kelly's smoking a cigarette right
Yeah.
now.
Yes. I'm just gonna buy and move on. I'm gonna leave that. Jesse has staked that territory out, and I would not dare duel him for it. So I will just move on.
Saki, Jen Psaki, Ginger P.
These are good. Not as good as the first one. I mean, the first one just stuck the absolute landing. Okay, but I'll buy.
Secretary Pete, DJ Booty Judge.
I like that one. That's good.
Of course.
Yeah.
Mayorkas, Ice Cuba.
That's great. Yes. That's great.
Secretary of State Blinken, Blinken M.
Blinken M. Like Eminem?
Yeah.
Blinken M. I like it. Clever. Yeah.
Secretary of Defense, I believe, Lloyd Austin, Little Deaf.
Ain't that the truth, brother? Right?
I'm in.
China's out there trying physics-defying weapons, and we're celebrating International Pronouns Day. Yes.
Let's see, Garland, Merrick Garland, Law Dog.
With the two W's there.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Janet Yellen, Dollar Killer. I like that.
Dude, that's very clever. That's very clever. This is good. This is a good list.
Let's see.
You know, this guy's like a white albino, hasn't had a tan since like 65. You know that probably, right? Okay. Isn't that how it always works? It's the whitest guys that come up with stuff like this.
Richard Levine, or the artist formerly known as Richard Levine, Dr. They.
No,
Yes.
God.
I love that.
Dr. They. Wow. Yes. 10,000 times yes on that. Yes.
General Mark Milley, Yo Whitey.
Yep.
That's good. Not as good as Dr. They. I mean, Dr. They's some good stuff. Yeah.
And Fauci, F word.
That's a good list.
It is a good list.
That's a good list.
Let's find a few more of these. Did we miss anybody in the administration?
Worth our time.
Worth our time? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've got to say it. Kamala Harris not going with Strawberry as her rap name. I mean, that was just so obvious. It just had to be done. Okay. And if I didn't make that correction, Jesse Kelly was going to hunt me down in my DMs and ask me, what the hell is wrong with you? Okay. So there you go.
Let's see. We will go with this one next from Or352. Trump's worst decision wasn't 15 days to flatten the curve or 30 days to slow the spread. It was firing Michael Flynn. His administration was dead on arrival from that moment.
Sell.
Regardless of whether you think an injustice was done there, from a cosmic level, it doesn't even come close to the damage that was done with those other two decisions.
See,
it just does not.
I actually think you could make a case for this, though. I think you signaled right then and there
that you're going to play ball.
That you're going to play ball.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Flynn got railroaded by the feds.
Correct.
But did he not still lie to the VP?
Yeah, he lied to somebody.
I think it was Pence.
Yep.
Well, then maybe that's okay then.
Let's see. Moving on. Trevor Giersbrecht says Sanjay Gupta was thrown to the wolves to appease Rogan's lawsuit threats.
That's a good point. I had not thought about that. Has he been threatening them with a lawsuit? I guess I'd missed that. Has he?
Yeah.
Okay. And so they just, okay, I could buy that. I could see that. Go do your tour of duty and then we'll just retcon the whole thing when you get back. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But I can't believe Rogan would give a rip one way or the other, but
agree.
Possible.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Itchy Mitch 79 says insurance companies will begin charging more for the unvaccinated.
Buy
if they can get away with it. Now, the only reason I hesitate is there's very few things I think will make a demonstrative difference if Republicans win big next year. But two of them are things like this, and I do think we will see inquiries into the true origins of the virus, the actions of Fauci, particularly in the House. But they've got to provide us. I think we will see those things. So, I mean, I could see there being some real congressional oversight of that, because remember, the feds are the ones setting all the coverages and stuff nowadays. So that's the only thing that gives me pause. But I'll buy that. It will at least be tried.
Are you buying, selling, or holding these 3-3 NFL teams? Pittsburgh.
Sell.
In terms of what, like as a playoff run?
Just buying, selling. Just what trajectory?
I'm actually going to buy. If you look how beat up the Browns are right now, what are the Bengals 4-2? I don't know that that's a long-term proposition. I'll buy. I think they could find a way to go win 9 games to get in the playoffs.
Cleveland.
I'm going to sell on them, actually.
Sell as well.
Denver.
I'm going to buy because defense travels. And if 9-8 gets you a playoff bid, I could see Teddy Two Gloves getting to 9-8. I could see that.
Kansas City. Oh, sorry, Todd.
I'll sell on Denver as well.
Kansas City.
I mean, they have the best, arguably the best football player on planet Earth. So I'll buy.
Minnesota.
Sell.
Sell.
Minnesota's just like okay at like everything, but not like really great at anything. Except when Dalvin Cook is in the lineup, but they have a hard time keeping him in the lineup. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Chicago.
Sell.
Carolina.
Year or two away.
Sell.
I'll buy. They play defense, and look, when they've got nothing out of Christian McCaffrey this year. What happens if he comes back and they start getting stuff out of him? So I'll buy on that. That division's not that strong either. I will come back. Daniel Horowitz is here with us. The weekly prophet of woe and lamentation when we return. You know, if you talk to your big box store expert, they'll tell you, hey, anytime's a great time to plant your next round of trees or shrubs, or they'll maybe say, I don't know, great question. Let me Google it. You know, the best time to plant, though, is actually the fall, which is why now is the time to go to fastgrowingtrees.com. No more waiting in lines, messy cars, digging through a lackluster selection. Just go to fastgrowingtrees.com. Choose from thousands of varieties of trees, shrubs, plants, expertly curated to thrive in your area and delivered to your door in just a matter of days. So whether you're looking for shade, privacy, fruit trees, maybe just added color for your yard, every plant shipped with a well-developed root system ready to explode with new growth come spring. There's a better way to do trees and shrubs and plants for your home and yard, and that's fastgrowingtrees.com. Over 1 million satisfied customers. Look at their extensive catalog. Take advantage of the 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee as well. And now through November the 30th, fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve will offer you 15% off. Now through November 30th, fastgrowingtrees.com/Steve to get 15% off. Let's welcome in our weekly prophet of woe and lamentation himself, our good friend, Daniel Horowitz. Good to see you, brother. How are you?
We're doing all right, considering it's the Fourth Reich, Steve.
Indeed. It certainly seems
could
to
always
have...
be worse.
It could always be worse. Yes, that's what we love about you.
Kind of like the people who died with COVID after the vaccine. It could have always been worse without the vaccine.
Like Neo Cavuto. Neo Cavuto apparently got vaccinated to test positive for the vaccine, or for Freudian slip, for COVID. And now he's ecstatic to let you know that COVID saved me, or the vaccine. See, I can't even keep the two straight any longer. The vaccine saved me from COVID, and it would have gotten worse had I not taken the COVID vaccine, right? That's Neil Cavuto at Fox News, like a good little apparatchik.
And Dennis Prager would have had it better than he had it had he had the shot.
Yes. Along those lines, this is one of the most devastating montages I've ever seen. I want you to watch it, Daniel, and then I want to get your reaction.
So now we have two vaccines that are really quite effective. The mRNA vaccine, highly effective, extraordinarily efficacious, 94 to 95% for mild to moderate disease, and virtually 100% efficacious, because the real world effectiveness is even more impressive than the results of the clinical trial.
These headlines are incredible. We're just watching them go back and forth. If you're not watching on BlazeTV right now, you are not getting the full impact of this. Yes, but it's they borrowed it from like a famous symphony, I believe.
Right, but it's used because of all the magic.
Yes.
Yeah. Some very anal retentive people, God bless them, have come back with, well, none of these headlines are actually in chronological order. That's not the point. The very fact that we have had no idea how actually efficacious these vaccines are, that's the point, the Tower of Babel.
Whether or not it's effective, we know it's highly effective.
Right, it's random, like a lot of the data that we have been fed. Yeah, the narratives.
Highly effective.
Come on, man.
All right, nice. All right, Daniel Horowitz, I'm telling you, I've put together some devastating montages. I've never seen anything as devastating as that. Your reaction to that.
It never gets old. It never gets old, that thing. My kids have watched it a few times already. And by the way...
Hold on.
How old is his oldest?
And the oldest is 11.
Okay. Daniel's kids. Daddy.
Can we watch it again?
Yeah. Pokemon? No, Dad, can we watch that montage again, Pops? If that is not on brand for Daniel friggin' Horowitz, I don't know what is. His kids watch this for fun. Yes.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Yes.
It's like when my wife is taking out the garbage and she sees all the problems at the bottom of it. She says, "Daniel, there's liberals in the bottom of the garbage."
There you go. I like it.
But yeah, that's what our house was about. Look, Steve. Here's the thing. The thing about that montage is they were all pharma paid for news organizations. See, if you actually had the Daily Skeptic in some of ours, you would have gotten down to negative 109% in England for those 40 to 49, negative 44% after 7 months in Qatar from Cornell Weill University. So it's actually gone further than that. The 3% from the J&J DOD study. So we can go on and on. But look, I think the reason why it's so devastating is because I've had a hard time articulating this to people. Every time we get them, they're on to the next thing. It's the drive-by. It's to cover up for their crime. As Rush said, when there's so much mayhem, you forget about what happened last. By the time you get your bearings, they're on to the down the road doing another drive-by shooting. And Gert Vandenbosch, and I sent this to you a week ago in Trial Site, he published a headline that encapsulates what that's trying to do, which is everyone's looking at a snapshot. They're not looking at where it's coming from and where it's headed. And that's exactly the point that tries to convey. It puts it together with continuity of observation. And the single biggest challenge we have is the lack of continuity of observation. And that allows them to get away with it. Because what's happening now is this is the biggest crime against humanity globally ever. Okay? This is the biggest global crime ever done. The creation of it, the blocking of treatments for it, the pushing stuff that's harmful like remdesivir, everything to do with the shots. But they're always on to the next thing, the next thing. If you would put it together, that's how people would see that this entire thing was not just a fraud, but clearly planned and organized at every stage to have the right talking point for the right outcome. And I think that message perfectly puts it together. And it just demonstrates that, some of my 2,000-word articles is not where it's at. You gotta do parody, and you gotta put this out to people and make it accessible to your average person.
UK Health Security Agency chief just said about an hour ago that the death numbers in the UK, a country of 66 million, were about 80% of people over the age of 12 are vaccinated. That the death numbers are going in the wrong direction. The first reply tweet to this I saw. Let me read it for you. Surprise, London Tube pretty crowded and few people wearing masks. Keeping the mask provisions in confined spaces would not have been a big ask. But 80% of people over the age of 12 are vaccinated. The death numbers are going in the wrong direction, and the first reply, bring back the glorious mask. You can't, this is pathetically hilarious. Idolatry makes friggin' idiots of us all. This is so beyond dumb, stupid. I mean, the Israelites who stood in line to throw their babies into the fire to Moloch were smarter than this. This is so stupid. Let us go back to the old idolatry that didn't work. I mean, you can't reason or argue with this level of dumb, Daniel.
Steve, now you get another glimpse into the Horowitz home. When you do Bible study here, and this was always hard when you're, obviously a religious Jew, you're always going to be very into the Old Testament. It's hard to relate to what is it with these idols? What is it with, they believed in it and didn't believe it at the same time. And now my kids fully understand it. I mean, they've got nothing on these people. They will die for the cause. They will get the shots, go to the hospital from the blood clots, then get COVID, go to the hospital from COVID, and it's still working. And even when they die, it still works. Mm-hmm. And if it didn't, it's probably because they weren't wearing a mask. I mean, it's a religion, and it demonstrates how you can't reason, you can't debate. You have to break away from these people. You cannot live together.
This is the equivalent. I threw my kid into the fire to Moloch. Now my wife and I are going to rush home to go try to create another baby because we just can't wait to do it again. We just can't wait to do it again. I mean, you cannot reason with this.
No, you cannot. You cannot. And this is, I mean, again, these are the same people that are taking doctors. I just had on my show, it's going to come out in an hour or two, Dr. Flavio Catagiani. He is what Dr. Corey considers the top COVID doctor in the entire world. It was a spellbinding interview, and you guys could all hear it on Blaze podcast when it comes out. This is where he said he treated 2,400 people, never lost a single person. As he was going on air with me, the Brazilian Senate was reading a report against him, accusing him of crimes against humanity because he should have let them die. Why treat them when they can just die? It's better to do that. And it's a global thing. And it's not just in America. We say we could evacuate and go elsewhere. This is happening in almost every country. It is. There's no way this wasn't planned. And one point on the English data, and I'm very into this because I called this a few months ago. See, their big answer to everything is they're saying, well, I'll tell you why it's worse. Because of the Delta. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem with that is I noted, and England's the ground zero for this. England got their first Delta wave. It's the same Delta in May, June. It was nothing. It was a cold. We saw the decoupling. They had a bunch of cases. No deaths. It came to America, and it crushed the South.
Yep.
Because that's when Israel's 145-day benchmark of the leakage started leaking, and the vaccine created vaccine-mediated enhancement of the virus. The biggest proof is England's getting the same Delta now post the leakage of the vaccine, and it's worse than it's not just that it wore off, so we're back to kind of where we were this time last year. It's worse than it ever was. So that demonstrates more than anything the vaccine is the culprit for what is going on now, and that cycle is going to continue the more we use it, and 5 to 11-year-olds are up next.
2 minutes here. Explain further why you think a lot of what's being done here is, as you put it, to cover up a genocide.
Because, like I said, they cannot afford to have a respite of time where you could focus. Notice that when we thought the virus was going to go away, and we're almost focusing on other issues, March, April, May, that period of time, that's when all the stories about the origins of the virus started to come out. That is the antecedent to this, because the same people who are pushing this created it. And I don't think we're going to like what we find out. I think it's a lot worse than any of us think. And they always have to have the next thing, the lockdown. And then when that's about to break, the mask, and then the shots. And that's why they have to block early treatment. Because if people survive this, then they will see, wait a minute, everything you were doing until now was genocide. They cannot afford to let people alone. They cannot afford to have people that don't get the shot.
They can't afford a control group. Yeah.
They can't afford a control group. If you understand that principle, you will understand everything they're doing.
Well, this is and just to reinforce what you just said and back you up, this is what went on last year with the memory holding of Sweden during lockdowns. Before we even got to vaccines, before we were even full-throated into the masquerade, even in March, April, and May of last year, it was as if Sweden did not exist, and it's because they could not afford a control group against whatever the global narrative they were pushing in all these countries at that time was.
And when was the last time you heard the federal government promote the monoclonals?
Well,
didn't Biden say he was going to promote it?
Exactly. I've been on numerous shows, and I always ask them, hey, ask your audience how many ads they saw for Regeneron or monoclonal antibodies since it was authorized last November after it saved Trump's life.
Did Colin Powell get the monoclonals? We don't know. I mean, did he?
How many of them heard of it first when Ron DeSantis started to make it portable throughout Florida, and then after its success, they, of course, now want to ration it. One of my listeners sent me a note doing some math on hundreds of thousands of lives. If you look at the efficacy of monoclonal with the numbers in Florida, you extrapolate that over the hundreds of thousands of deaths. How many of those? We literally hundreds of thousands of people died that didn't have to. And that's before you can get to ivermectin and all this stuff you and I are talking about, just based on monoclonal alone. Okay.
Approved by government. Government, created by the cool kids in Big Pharma.
Great stuff as always, my friend. Make sure you tune into his podcast today. All right. God bless, Daniel. Take care.
God bless.
Tell your kids to enjoy that Fauci montage. It cracks me up. These kids. They sit around on their phones. Let's watch the Fauci montage again. That is as Daniel Horowitz, man, as it gets right there. Hey, you know the computer servers for a lot of branches in government? Like, you know, some important places that keep a lot of our data. Social Security Administration, Health and Human Services, U.S. Census Bureau are like decades old, and that makes them very susceptible to hackers, which makes you and I susceptible, if we are homeowners, to what is called home title theft, because even if they can't steal our identities, because you've got identity theft protection, and you should if you don't, they now, though, have some identifiable information on us. And they go online to a lot of databases where our homes are kept. They identify as us. And then they make it look like they've sold your home to themselves. Then they start taking out loans and everything else against your equity, and you often don't find out about it until stuff starts showing up in the mail you never want to see. Make sure this does not happen to you, and it probably won't with our friends at Home Title Lock. Go there now, register your address for free, see if you're already a victim, make sure your home's title is in the free and clear, and then while you're there, use the promo code RADIO to get 30 free days of protection today for your most important asset, your own home. 30 free days of protection today at HometitleLock.com if you use the promo code RADIO. Reaction to the conversation Daniel and I just had here before we close it out.
There's nothing quite like a conversation about genocide on a Wednesday. Todd, your thoughts?
For those who...
Genocide Wednesday! Yes, go ahead.
For those who still can't hear the crazy voices or won't listen to the crazy voices in your head, you're like, that's just too fantastic, Daniel. The so-called It's For the Children group, the cult that is the teachers union, made sure that those schools stayed shut down and are still preaching all of the nonsense they can possibly preach in that regard. Yet you can't believe that the same kind of nonsense, the same kind of mindset might hold sway in the vaccination industry, in the science industry, that they might be there for reasons other than public health. I mean, folks, like Steve talked about on the show today, the Nazis happened. Why is this so beyond the pale? Wake up.
Breaking, by the way, as we predicted yesterday, fired Washington State football coach Nick Rolovich to take legal action against the university. Yep. We told you yesterday that was absolutely coming with the amount of money on the table here. All right, we'll see you again tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Hall of Famer Glenn Beck. Until then, John 3:17.